Hi guys, I'm Kasia. Welcome to the channel and welcome as always to our coffee times to discuss movies and horror. And today I'm here with the second movie review from the Fantasy Film Fest, and that is the Mexican horror movie Evil Eye.
It's coffee time.
I was really excited about this one because I do love movies that dive into folklore from other countries that maybe I'm not so familiar with the folklore. And from Mexico, we already had the Curse of La Llorona, so we already had some sort of folklore. So I was really excited to see what this movie had to bring. The original Spanish title is Mal de Ojo, which I've explained this before, but we used to say that in Spain as well. When somebody has a lot of bad luck, we sometimes say somebody has given you Mal de Ojo, which means mostly like someone, typically is considered that a gypsy has looked at you the wrong way and has somehow cursed you. That's why you're having such bad luck. So that's something that we also say in Spain. Sometimes, Mexican stuff, Spanish stuff don't always align when it comes to sayings or words. We do use different words. It's not the same Spanish. But it was really interesting for me to see this movie, and actually one in the Fantasy Film Fest that I didn't need subtitles for because most of the movies at the Fantasy Film Fest are in original, so we watch like Finnish, Norwegian, French, so I had to be reading subtitles all the time, which is fine. I'd rather watch movies in their original language, but it's always nice when I can, just watch a movie that I understand without having to read. Alright, so let's dive into this film. As always, spoiler free, and as I said, this is a Mexican horror movie from 2022, Mal de Ojo, translated to Evil Eye. And I was really excited. I didn't know too much going into it. I just knew the basic plot, and I have to say that it had really interesting things. However, there were other things that I was not so much on board with, so let's dive into it and see which things I liked and which things I didn't like so much. In this movie, we follow two parents that are struggling because from their two daughters, the youngest one seems to be sick with an illness that they cannot find a cure for. So they have tried absolutely everything and they have not been able to really figure out what's wrong with her and how to cure it. So Rebecca, the mother, is absolutely desperate, and she feels like it is finally time to ask the family for help, specifically her mother, the grandmother of the children. She feels like she might be able to help and decides to go back home to the mansion where she grew up and she had not been in for a very long time. After a few days at their grandmother's country house, the girls eventually discover that the legends and superstitions of the area are rooted in real facts. Attracted by the forces emerging underneath and trying to protect her sick sister, Nella will have to make decisions that will transform her life forever. So our main characters are of course the family. We have Guillermo and Rebecca are the parents. Guillermo doesn't really believe in anything like superstitions or any specific type of magic or old cures, and then we have Rebecca, who has a background on this type of like folklore tales and magic, and she believes that the grandmother might be able to help figure out what's wrong with her daughter and possibly even be able to cure her. We have Nala and Luna. So Nala is the older sister who is tired of always having to adapt and change plans and move places because of her younger sister. She's the one getting the least attention, and Luna gets all the attention because obviously Luna is really sick, and she has some sort of like illness that you could compare to epilepsy, kind of like an advanced type of epilepsy, and she has attacks sometimes that are really scary. So those are basically our main family characters, plus the grandmother. So when the family gets there, we are introduced to this mysterious grandmother, and this grandmother is someone that is very peculiar. She doesn't seem to be really nice to anybody. She has a mind of her own. It might be her age, and Guillermo doesn't really like her either, and Nala also doesn't trust her. So from the very beginning we get a weird vibe from the grandmother, and we kind of know that there is a lot more that meets the eye. Nella is your typical adolescent girl, and she wants her internet, her social media, and when she gets to this place, this country house, she realizes there is no Wi-Fi, no internet, no nothing, and she's desperate to connect to her phone, which is an interesting thing to see, you know, nowadays, the addiction of teenagers in social media and internet, and how they really struggle if they go just one day without it. After the family gets to the home, Rebecca and Guillermo, the parents, decide to go somewhere into town to try to find a cure for Luna. So basically the sisters, Nala and Luna, are left alone with the grandmother, apart from Abigail and Pedro, who are workers that are helping the grandmother, taking care of the house, the garden, and all of those things. What I liked about Evil Eye, or what kind of worked for me, was the sound and the effects and the acting, especially on the part of the kids, which all work together to create kind of that atmosphere for me. I really love the pacing of the film, as well as the location, this country house, and kind of the area around it, the property grounds. I really enjoyed it, and I think that the director did a really good job, and he gave us a lot of different type of takes. You know, he made it look very versatile, even though we were in the same space for the majority of the film. And the house did an amazing job at being another character in this film, because the presence of this country house is what added the most to the atmosphere, the glass windows, the, you know, like the vegetation around it. Like, it made it look like one of those old gothic haunted houses. Another thing that I really enjoyed about the movie is that how we talk about stories, legends, myths are passed from generation to generation, and stories are being told from grandmothers to mothers to their own children. So I love to learn about the legends and the traditions, and I really love that element of the film. When it comes to the horror, it is mostly based on a story that Abigail, the woman that works in the country house, tells the kids, a legend about three sisters and what happened to them. I found that story really entertaining, really compelling. I almost enjoyed that story more than the one that we had in the movie. I kind of wish they would have made their own movie about that, about those three sisters. I really would have enjoyed it. It was almost like a Brothers Grimm tale, so I think that's why I really enjoyed it. But from the very beginning of the film, you kind of see where things are going. This movie, it is extremely predictable. From the very get-go of the film, you already know there's going to be some sort of witchcraft, you know, some sort of magic that is gonna come around. You kind of know where things are going, and as the movie progresses, things get super clear, perhaps way too early. I feel like we get things that are just so predictable way too early, which basically is already spoiling you the events towards the end, because you already know what's gonna happen. And now let's talk about one of my pet peeves in horror movies. I'm not a fan of watching a scene and then the character wakes up and we realize it was a dream. I don't like it. If you use it one time, okay, but when it's used like 3 times in a row, I'm out. That really bugged me. I just don't like that. That is a trope that I just cannot see anymore. Please stop. I do have to praise the practical effects and the makeup in the film. There was a little bit of CGI that was not, you know, the greatest, because it is a lower budget film, so you also have to keep that in mind. But I feel like when it comes to the horror aspects, the horror elements, the horror creatures, I feel like they did a really good job at giving us something disgusting, terrifying, and kind of doing something a little bit different, a little bit original, tying everything up with this legend that we heard. And I have to praise them for, you know, doing the horror right, even though sadly, because it was so predictable, I feel like things didn't have the impact that they could have been if they would have perhaps revealed less, at least in the early stages of the film. Alright guys, so at the end of the day, I gave this one a 2.5 out of 5. I think it's still worth to watch one time. It was really interesting for me, especially like I've mentioned, to know about the traditions and the legends. I think it has good acting, a great location. I did like the horror elements of it. It's just, it was really tropey, and it was too predictable. However, I would recommend you guys to give it one watch if you have the chance, if it's available anywhere where you live. Alright guys, so this was my spoiler-free review of Evil Eye Mal de Ojo. Let me know down below if you knew about the film, if you've already watched it. Let's talk about it in the comments down below. Thank you guys as always so much for watching, and I hope to see you all in the next coffee time. Bye!